I will never forget that day in Pinewood, Texas, when everything I took for granted began to unravel. My name is Mia Thompson, and I am 27 years old. I live in a small town where everybody knows each other, and the days tend to blend together like muted colors on an old canvas. I work at a local diner, serving hot coffee and hearty breakfasts to the regulars who have become kind of like an extended family. I have always been known for my bubbly persona, a quality that attracts attention and keeps me surrounded by friends. However, a darker shadow loomed over my sunny life, and it all began with a phone call. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning when my phone rang. I remember glancing at the caller ID, noticing a number I did not recognize. I hesitated but answered, thinking it might be a potential customer or perhaps one of my friends calling from a different number. The voice on the other end was confident, almost too confident for discomfort. A young woman, sounding perfectly fluent in English, introduced herself as a representative from TRAI. She launched right into a script, declaring that my personal number was involved in illegal activities and would be blocked within 2 hours if I did not take immediate action to clear my name. I felt a chill run down my spine. What in the world did she mean? I had never been involved in anything illegal. My life had always revolved around work and the occasional laughs with friends. My mind raced. To make matters worse, she instructed me to report to the police station in Antwerp to prove my innocence. It sounded ridiculous, a blatant scam, but she pushed further, insisting I take her seriously. As if on cue, a video call connected me to a supposed police officer. The man on the screen wore a uniform and had the stern look of authority, and my heart raced as he began to scold me for being involved in money laundering. My mouth went dry. I was prepared to defend myself, but how could I when I knew absolutely nothing about this? I felt trapped, backed into a corner with no option other than to comply with their absurd demands. He asked me for my financial inventory, wanting my bank statements and balance. I had only a few dollars left to my name, just enough to get through the week. My shaking hand sent a screenshot of my bank statement, which revealed the dismal truth. Just $2 or $3 stared back at me, mocking my situation. The call abruptly disconnected, and just like that, I was free, but at what cost? Even though my intuition told me I had just been the target of a scam, I could not shake the feeling of dread. I decided to listen to the call recording, and sometimes I even laughed at the absurdity of it all. The way I had reacted in the moment was both foolish and funny. I took that laugh, that ridiculous moment, and turned it into a story for my followers on Reddit. I titled my post, "I let her suck my soul for straight 44 minutes for no fucking reason." I uploaded the call because I thought it might give others a good laugh or even serve as a warning. I didn't expect it to go viral. My phone blew up with notifications, my friends flooded me with messages asking if it was for real. I became an internet sensation, someone who had unwittingly turned a scam into a spectacle. But while I reveled in my newfound attention, I could not shake the initial feeling of being a victim, a feeling that continued to nag at my conscience, eating away at my proud, carefree demeanor. That was just the beginning. The more attention the story gained, the more I realized that my life had shifted. I started to receive messages from people who found my story inspiring, funny, and even relatable. Many shared their own tales of being scammed or misled, and I began to feel a strange bond with these people. We were all victims in one way or another, navigating life's various pitfalls. However, each like and share seemed to bring a new kind of trouble into my life. I noticed one particular user who consistently commented on my post. At first, I thought it was just harmless fun. He praised my story, even calling me a queen for owning my laughter in the face of adversity. Yet as the days turned into weeks, his comments grew increasingly aggressive, as if he wanted something more from me. He went from an admirer to someone who became obsessed, commenting in a way that made me feel uncomfortable. When I blocked him, which I thought was simple enough, he escalated the situation by creating new accounts. It felt as if this person was looming over me, a shadow that refused to disappear. I tried to ignore it, but after a while, it began to consume me. I often found myself glancing over my shoulder when I walked home from the diner after a shift, worrying that he might follow me. My sense of security slowly crumbled away, replaced by anxiety and distrust. Feeling helpless and querulous, I spoke to my boss about my fears. She was supportive, giving me advice on safety measures and encouraging me to report the harassment. But there was more at stake here than just an online menace. that was when I decided to take back control of my life. I recognized that I had unwittingly stepped into a new narrative that twisted my original circumstance into a challenge I needed to conquer. I wanted this nemesis to know that he had chosen the wrong person to mess with. I began to devise my own plans for revenge, plotting the course that would curve back against him instead of remaining on the defensive. First, I gathered information. I started documenting every comment, every message, every single interaction with this person. I set my settings to private while simultaneously creating a new account where I could indulge in my plan undisturbed. The new account was devoid of personal details, allowing me to anonymously peek into his digital life. I began to understand his patterns, what triggered him, and how he interacted with others online through different usernames. I would watch and learn, and soon I discovered something peculiar. It turned out he had a penchant for bragging about his digital prowess and had developed a third identity that showcased himself as an internet guru, preaching about online safety while hiding behind a facade. The irony was infuriating, and I made it my mission to flip the script. I began commenting from my new account to spark discussions around internet safety, all while subtly weaving in the kind of humor I had become known for. I would drop hints about people who think they can take advantage of others online without consequence. The threads began to gain attention, and my troll's identity grew more uncertain in the climate of revelations. Soon enough, he began to sense that the virtual waters were getting choppy. His comments turned defensive, frantic almost, and he started pulling away from discussions he normally dominated. I found it hilarious. As I continued to weave my way through this jungle of deception, I decided it was time to expose him. I crafted a well-composed post, revealing his affiliations, and offered proof of his dual identities. The post came together like a careful tapestry of evidence, bolstered by the online community that had rallied behind me. By the time I hit upload, I felt both liberated and terrified. The response was explosive, and within days, his online personas began to crumble. He was outed as a fraud, a coward behind a keyboard, and I had finally turned the tables. The aftermath was beyond what I expected. News spread about my little exposé, and the community hailed me as a champion. I was no longer the girl who had let her soul get sucked away during a scam call. I had transformed into a warrior of sorts, fighting back not only for myself, but also for anyone who might find themselves in a similar situation. The empowerment sent waves through me, and as the likes flooded in, I felt something within me shift. My laughter no longer felt like it was hiding behind anxiety. Instead, it rode the winds of victory. Finally, after months of living in a shadow of fear and self-doubt, I could breathe again. I embraced the light, connecting with those who had supported me and building a community that thrived on resilience, humor, and shared experience. In the months to follow, I decided to utilize this newfound outlet and passion, launching a channel where I spoke about online safety, empowerment, and even shared more ridiculous stories like the original prank call that had turned my life upside down. Each episode infused a little bit of humor with hard truths, where I could be vulnerable while making others laugh. Although my confrontation with that dark specter in my life had its ups and downs, I found the closure I needed in an unexpected way. The curtain had finally dropped on this harrowing chapter of my life. As I stood beneath the glow of my computer screen, watching the comments flood in, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. It was not just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my narrative and transforming it into something positive. In my small town of Pinewood, Texas, life resumed its normal pace. I continued to work at the diner, finding comfort in familiar faces, but this time, I carried a sense of belonging that blossomed from within. Somewhere deep inside, I knew I had the strength to stand up against the turmoil that life threw my way. With every laugh, every story, and every engagement, I committed myself to share the message that resilience works wonders. I had taken everything that had once sought to tear me apart and turned it inside out, creating something beautiful that resonated with others. The unexpected twist in my story was not the downfall of my nemesis, but rather the rise of my spirit. And as I ventured forth, I was excited to simply be Mia Thompson, an ordinary girl who found extraordinary strength through hardship. And I would keep sharing, keep fighting, for myself and every other voice that needed to be heard. Life had a way of reshaping, and I was ready for whatever plot twist lay ahead.